Hi, welcome back. So now we're going to get started on some of the functions for program 6. So we've already done program 6. We already got our main function pretty much going. Here, the only thing that's left is the process selection. But if we take a look down here at the process selection function, this function is the function in which we process the selection, right? So you pass the choice here, you pass the balances in your checkings and your savings, and then if the choice is D, then you're going to deposit to checking here, deposit to savings here. If the choice is W, you're going to withdraw, And the problem is that this process selection function uses other functions. It uses the display function, which is fine. We've already done that, but it also uses the deposit function and with the withdraw function. So then if we go down here and take a look at our deposit function, that's very easy. We can implement that one and then test it. And then we have our withdraw function, and our withdraw function is going to have to use the enough money function. So we're going to have to, so if you take a look at it, we have functions that use other functions. So what we need to do is, in order to use this enough money function in our withdraw function, we need to implement the enough money function first. And then we need to implement the withdraw function, and then we'll do the process selection last because it uses all of these functions. So let's do the one that's the easiest first. The one that's the easiest first is going to be the deposit function. So this function is just going to ask the user how much they want to add and add that to the value at the balance pointer. So we're going to have to declare an add amount. Then we're going to have to ask the user, printf, how much? Then we scanf into our add amount. Let me just pause here for 1 second. So we're going to ask the user how much they want to add, and then we're going to scan in that amount. And then we're going to have to add that to the value at. So we have our balance pointer, but we have to get to the value at our balance pointer, which is the value at balance pointer plus the add amount. So we're going to add those two together, and then we're going to assign that result to the value at balance pointer. So we take whatever value comes in here. Remember, this is an address. So then in order, go review pointers. In order to get to that value, we have to get the value at balance pointer, add the add amount, add those together, and assign that to the new value at balance pointer. Now we're going to be calling this eventually from our process function, but since we haven't implemented our process function yet, we want to make sure the deposit money function works as expected. So we're going to use our main function like a driver to test it. We're just going to go up here to the beginning of our main function after we've gotten our balances, and we're going to call the deposit money function because we want to make sure it's working correctly. So to call the deposit money function, we have to pass it an address of one of our accounts. We can just pick one of them. Again, we're just testing here, testing the function. We're going to be using it later, but we want to just test to make sure that it works without having to implement the entire process function. So in order to test that it works, we just call the deposit money function. We pass the address of our checking balance, and then we display our checking balance afterward. So we don't really need to worry about any of this run menu part because all we're doing right here is testing this deposit money function to make sure that it works. Then we're going to test our enough money function. Then we're going to test our withdraw function, and then we're going to put it all together into the process. So let's build this. And so now we have, if you take a look here, we displayed our balances, and now we're jumping out of our main into our deposit money function. We're entering, I don't know, can enter $900. So now it has updated our checking balance to be $1,000. So it just follows along. We displayed the balances, we do the deposit, we display the balance again. And now I feel very confident that my deposit money function is working correctly. So now I can remove this because I'm not actually in the full implementation. I will not be using it from that. I will actually be calling it later from my process selection function. So my process selection function uses the display function, the deposit function, and the display function. And I do want to implement this, but I'm going to save this for last because my process selection function also uses the withdraw function. So let's go take a look at our withdraw function. So our withdraw function, we need to have a subtract amount. Then we need to ask the user, data type is double. We have to ask the user how much they want to subtract. I'm going to go take that printf from here. How much? So our withdraw function, we're going to say how much, and then we're going to get that from the user. Now here's the little thing here. What if we don't have enough money? If we don't have enough money, certainly you're not going to do that subtraction. So if you notice, we have a new function here. We need to make sure that this function works before we can use it. So I'm going to jump out of my withdraw function and implement my enough money function. My enough money function is fairly simple. It's going to say if the balance, I even put it right here for you, if the balance is greater than or equal to the subtract amount, then you want to return a 1. So if you have enough money in your account that you can make the subtraction, you're going to return a 1. Else, you will, let's shrink our code a little, return 0. So this function is very simple and straightforward. And what I think the best way to test this is to go to my main function and test it to make sure that it works right, and then test my withdraw. So let's check our enough first. It's very simple to check our enough function. We just go right up here at the beginning and we say int num equals, the name of the function is enough money. We just pass it 2 values, 10 and 5. So the first value is the balance, the second value is the subtract amount. So this function should return a 0 with those values. To be more correct, we could put doubles in here. Again, we are just test the function to make sure that it works. So then of course I want to print that onto the screen. There's no way to know if it's working. Num is %d. So when you're doing a function that is a pass by value, you can put variables that have values in them, or you can actually just pass literal values. Now later it will of course have variables, but right now we just want to make sure that our function is working as expected. So this should return a 0. Let's test it and make sure. And remember that you need to do things from your main function. So if functions call other functions, the best way to test is to use your main function as a driver and then make sure that function works as expected. So num is 1. So the first number is the balance and the second number is the subtract amount. So I was backwards, so it should return a 1. And now if the balance is not enough, now it should return a 0. Okay, so now I am satisfied that my enough money function is working as expected. So now I can go and implement my withdraw function. So I get the subtract amount, then I test. I call the enough money function. The first value I'm passing is the value of my balance pointer. The second value that I'm passing is the subtract amount. So if my balance is enough, that means it's greater than or equal to the subtract amount, it will return a 1, and then I can make the subtraction. If it doesn't, then I cannot. Now, if you would rather not use it, so condensed this way, you can declare an integer called enough. If this is more clear for you, and you can say enough, en, enough equals, and then you call the function. It will return a value. And then you can compare to see if that value is a 1. So either way is fine. This is just breaking it down. We have a variable called enough. We call our enough money function. We pass it the value at our balance. We pass it the subtract amount that the user enters. If it is enough, it will return a 1. If we return a 1, we can actually make the subtraction. If it does not return a 1, then you cannot make the subtraction. So what I would do here is right here, I would subtract. So I would take my balance pointer. Of course, if it's a 1, equals my balance pointer minus the subtract amount. And then I would say else printf not enough money. Again, you can do a much better interaction with the user. I don't really want you to have to watch me typing. So this is my withdraw money function. All right, so now, again, I want to test my withdraw money function the same way I tested my deposit money function right here in my main. Now I can do it right here because I will display it. So I withdraw money. I can try passing the address of my savings this time. It doesn't really matter, just one of them. Okay, so that's the function. It's going to pass the savings and it's going to do all the work in the withdraw, and then I will display it afterward if it works. So I'm going to test this twice. I'm going to test it once with enough money and once without enough money. So let's see if it works. How much? So I have 200 in my savings. I'm going to put 300. It should say not enough money. And now I will try it with enough. How much? $20. And now it should change it to 180, which it does. All right, so now I feel very confident that my deposit function works, my enough function works, my withdraw function works. So now all I have to do is implement my process selection function. And that's pretty straightforward. It's just a bunch of conditions. So we will process the selection for a D selection. Else if it's a W. So of course, if it's a D, you have to ask and get the account. Then you call your display balance, your deposit, your display again. And if it's a W, you would ask and get the account, do the same thing. So we will do it for the W, and I will leave it for you guys to finish it with the D. All right, so here we need to ask and get the account. Printf. 1 for checking and 2 for savings. Now you could have, you have a couple of options here. I chose to assume that the user is going to enter a 1 or a 2. You could have an if, else if, and then else not recognized. That's also fine. The way that I set it up is that you only have 2 accounts. You have checking, you have savings. The grader is only going to test for a 1 or a 2. But if I was going to really be complete, I would do else if, and then I would say else printf That is not an account number. So either way is fine. I don't want to, there's always going to be so many more things that you can do. So I just don't want you to have to worry too much about that. This is more of a focus on the input output parameters, etc. Now you need to notice that our choice is a simple character, so that's easy to compare. But our checking is an address and our savings is an address. So the first thing we need to do is call our display balance function. So when we call our display balance function, our display balance function takes an account balance. It does not take an address. So we're going to have to here pass in the address of check pointer. And then since it's the checking, we're going to put a C. So it's going to come in here. Oh, and I completely messed up. It's the value at. And thank goodness that I did that on purpose. No, I'm just kidding. So this should be the value at, not the address. Check pointer is an address. Display balance does not take an address. Display balance takes the value of the address. All righty. So to display with our account number 2, we would display our savings. That's your count number 2 with an S. All right, then you just have to call the withdraw function. So if the account is 1, you're going to call the withdraw function. What is the withdraw function? Withdraw money function. That's what it's called. All right, where am I back here in my process? Okay, withdraw money function. Okay, the withdraw money function takes a pointer. So we do not need to get to the value at check pointer. We're just going to pass check pointer as it is. To withdraw from the savings account, use the same function, but we're going to pass the save pointer. So now I'm going to test it. I have not implemented the deposit. I'm going to leave that for you, but we do need to call this process selection function. So right here in my loop, I don't really need to keep that anymore. This is where I'm going to call my process selection function. My process selection function takes by copy the selection, which inside the function, it's called choice. And then it takes the address of my checking balance and the address of my savings balance. All right, let's see if it works. Now remember that we haven't done deposit, so deposit won't do anything, but we have done withdraw. So let's see if it works. All right, I have an error. Oh, I forgot to ask for the account. So here I need to ask and get, I said 1 for checking and 2 for savings, and then I forgot to put the scanf here. Into the address of account. And all right, let's try again. All right, so I'm going to enter, I'm curious what happens if I enter D, nothing happens. If I enter E, it's not recognized. If I enter W, 1 for checking, 1 for checking. The balance is $100. I want to withdraw $500. not enough money. Now I'll try again. 2 for savings. My balance is $200. I want to take out $30. Now it's 170. Now I quit. And now my balance in my savings should be changed. So if I navigate to the folder and look at the file here, you will see that they started out at 100 and 200 and they ended up at 100 and 170. All right, so I hope this helps you with program 6. And if you have any questions, be sure to reach out and be sure not to wait until the last minute to complete this assignment.